Hey, what is going on, everybody? Well, happy Sunday, another boring Sunday night football game. So, we are here on Sunday night to give you another edition of SEC Talk heading into week number 5 of this season. It was an okay week for slate, both outside of the conference and inside the conference, but I am very excited. We got a loaded week 5 matchup. We got a top 15 matchup with both Alabama and Georgia and then with LSU and Ole Miss. So Wade, how was your weekend, and are you excited about this really fully loaded weekend we got here?
Yeah, I'm excited for next weekend because this weekend was pretty lackluster when it came to college football. Even the NFL was a little boring as well. So I guess that's what it takes to have a loaded weekend next weekend. They can't all be like that,
Right.
but definitely a lot to look forward to based on what we cover tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and dive into the show here. Sorry, I'm having dealing with a little bit of lag here, so I'm trying to get everything cooperated here. But we will go ahead and get into our SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll. And if you're with us on the show, we do this every single week. We're doing it throughout the end of the season here. We'll have the college football playoff poll in November, but since we do these shows on Mondays and Sundays, we won't be having that, but still worth a discussion. But we will get into our SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll. We do have a lot of changes surrounding this poll. And then number 4 is LSU. So LSU, even with the blowout loss, did move down a spot. You had Miami move up to number 2. The Miami resume, to be honest with you, I feel like a lot of people are talking very highly on it. But looking outside of it, I mean, they beat a Notre Dame team who already has 2 losses. They beat a Florida team who has 3 losses, and South Florida team that we will see how good they are. The American is definitely looking like a conference that's definitely going to look out to watch. Number 5, Georgia on the bye week. They have a big test this weekend at home in Athens against Alabama, which we will get into and later on the show. And then number 7 is Oklahoma after a big home victory against Auburn. They move inside the top 10. So we now have a lot of teams inside of the top 10 here in the SEC. Texas A&M moved up even on the bye week as well. They'll have, really a tough stretch coming up of SEC games. Then number 10, Texas. Texas looked, dominant on both sides of the ball against the Sam Houston team that is not so very good. And then number 13, Ole Miss, they moved up a couple of spots as well after blowing out Tulane, a game that we all thought that was going to be close. Not so fast, said the Rebels. And then number 15, Tennessee, they stay the same. Alabama actually moves down during the bye week. To be honest with you, I guess AP poll voters just picked this because Tennessee should have just been ahead of Alabama in the first place. And then number 18, Vanderbilt, after putting up 70 against Georgia State, which we will get into. And then number 20, Missouri, Auburn falls out. So overall takeaways on the AP poll heading into week number 5.
I think it's just about right. I mean, I think LSU kind of ironed out some things offensively. I think that they started to push the ball down the field and potentially have a good change of the pace running back in Juwan Johnson. I think Oklahoma was probably the big winner of the weekend, and they got rewarded moving up to number 7. And then I think that middle row there with Texas A&M, Texas, Ole Miss, I think those are all teams that very well could find their way into the top 5 if things shake out their way at some point this season. So they're definitely in the hunt. And then the next row, Tennessee and Alabama both, they have early season losses, but they can avenge those and find their way into the top 10. Vanderbilt and Missouri, I mean, they're very, very impressive, undefeated so far, ahead of schedule, if you ask me. So, but I did want to add one thing because one of our loyal viewers, Mr. Cameron Platt, he was clamoring for Mississippi State to be ranked. And he said that they are the first SEC team to start the season 4-0 and not be ranked at this point in the season. So do you think that the Bulldogs are getting snubbed here?
Yeah, I definitely think they're getting snubbed, especially with that win over Arizona State. And Arizona State got a big victory last night on a late field goal, beating Baylor, which I think that Baylor heading into this season, a lot of people had winning the Big 12. But honestly, this will take care of itself. Mississippi State has a golden opportunity to sneak in this AP Top 25 poll if they beat number 15 Tennessee at home. So I think everything is going to take care of itself. So I'm not really over the the moon on that. I'm not going to rant about Mississippi State not being in the top 25. But yeah, that's definitely a question that Mississippi State fans. But hey, got a golden opportunity, like I mentioned, this weekend at home. So, all right, let's go ahead. If you have any questions pertaining to your favorite team and how your team's matchup this weekend, maybe what you're excited for, what you're looking forward to watching this week, and maybe a matchup outside the conference too, because we definitely had a lot of those this past weekend. This weekend, I mean, we have Oregon and Penn State. That's definitely the headliner outside the conference. If you have any questions pertaining to SEC football or football around the nation, definitely feel free to leave us some questions, and we'll get to it at the end of the show. All right, let's get into some SEC Fantasy Week 4 results. And if you stay with us through the first 3 weeks of the season, it has been pretty dominant on my side of the ball. But I feel like Wade is definitely due for a good week. And look at your team cruising along. I mean, it seems like whoever gets Ahmad Hardy is going to win this week. So just go through your team and how they did in week number 4.
All right. I see 2 things that I like. A quarterback that got over 300 yards.
I see 3, actually.
And a defense that got under 200. So that's the recipe for success. I finally hit it. But yeah, go Diego, go Mr. Pavia. Just really one of the better dual threat quarterbacks in the country. He showed that, threw for about 250 yards, added 80 on the ground against Georgia State. So they avenged that loss from last year. So a good showing there from Pavia. Like we talked about, Vanderbilt has a lot of momentum headed into the SEC schedule. So let's see what they can do. Ahmad Hardy, early front runner for our player of the year. I'm seeing a lot of Cody Schrader in this game. He just takes it over. Downhill runner, only a sophomore, so they're going to have him for another year if they can keep him around NIL-wise. 138 yards. You'll see him on the show quite a bit more. Chris Brazel, he took a step back in this one against UAB. They didn't really need him. They were able to run the ball well with 3 guys, and they didn't have a need to hit UAB with the deep ball, but he had 62 yards. We'll take it. And then the Texas defense, they're the star of the weekend here. With this survivor defense, you only get to use them once. So it was a good use of it. And that gets me 418 yards. I don't know if I've ever eclipsed 400, but if I haven't, it was a hell of a weekend for my team.
Well, you've clipped more than 400. You've eclipsed actually 600 sometimes in the past couple of years here in SEC talk. But I was looking after the first quarter. Texas's defense was only giving up 17, so I thought they were going to compete with Kentucky's defense. No, it wasn't Kentucky's. It was Auburn's defense, against Ball State. But, 113 yards, that will work every single week. So 418, that's going to be a tough number to beat as we will head on to my team. You see, I see 2 positives outside of Harrison Wallace. Even my defense, 268 yards against Northern Illinois is respectable. But even in the loss against Memphis, Taylor Green had a really good game, 378 yards. Most of those yards coming on the passing, but he also had some rushing yards. And then Fluff Bothwell, what a name, the running back from Mississippi State, had a slow start in the first half, as the offense did for Mississippi State. But in the second half, you saw a lot of runs from Bothwell, putting him up to 111 yards, had 10 receiving yards to go along with that. And then Harrison Wallace, he put up 93 yards in the previous week with your team. Well, he goes to my team and just lays an egg. That's just the story of my life in fantasy this year. But 4 yards. Then Mississippi State's defense, 268 yards. I'll take it. Honestly, I was just looking for anything under 300 yards. I was a little worried there. Northern Illinois got up 3-0, and then they scored again to make 14-10. I was getting a little worried that Mississippi State was going to do this to me again against a MAC team, but nonetheless, 268 yards and respectable 209 total yards for me. So I will take it. So Wade, congratulations. You're on the board. After 3 long weeks of losing, you're back on the board, and we will see if you continue this winning streak heading into week number 5 of this season. So before we get into our weekly draft, here is the rules just to get you caught up how the rosters are and how our weekly rules go by. So we have 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, and a defense. So the quarterback, running back, and receiver are all total yards. So quarterback is both passing and rushing yards. running back is running and receiving. I mean, if a wide receiver ever runs, they get that yardage too. If a wide receiver is on a punt return, they do not get those yardage, unfortunately. And then the defense is just the total yards that they give up. You cannot draft the same player twice in back-to-back weeks, so we might as well just rename this the Ahmad Hardy rule at this point, the way that he's really been balling out every single week. And once you draft a defense, you can't use them again. So we've already used 4 defenses. The 5th defenses will be used tonight. So let's go ahead and get into the quarterbacks. And these are 2 explosive quarterbacks here, 2 dual threat candidates here with Marcel Reed of Texas A&M going up against a stingy Auburn defense, then LaNorris Sellers of South Carolina going up against a Kentucky team that, defense has shown it in some games. We will see. But talk about Marcel Reed's matchup, especially with this team coming off of a bye week and a dominant performance last time we saw him against Notre Dame.
Yeah, that performance against Notre Dame certainly opened my eyes. I think that that was a big step forward for Marcel Reed. Probably his best game of his career, maybe outside of the LSU game from last year. But, I think this team goes as far as he does. So now that they're a top 10 team playing at home against an Auburn team, although they have a good defense, I trust them to bring the Aggies over the edge and get the big win. Much like your guy, LaNorris Sellers, he can add it with his legs too. So that's an added bonus. But I'm looking for Marcel to put up close to 300 yards between the 2.
Yeah, I'm going to go with LaNorris Sellers. You remember last time I picked Kentucky's defense on SC Fantasy and how that went? Yeah, that's all I need to know. LaNorris Sellers did have an impressive showing against Missouri, who coming off of a game where he didn't even play. He was going through concussion protocol. But 300 total yards for LaNorris Sellers, I could definitely see it. South Carolina is in desperate need of a win. Same thing with Kentucky, but I think that this is going to be a back-and-forth game, as this always is. But give me the LaNorris Sellers. I mean, I needed a guy, a dual threat candidate to keep up with Marcel Reed, so I went with LaNorris Sellers. Now let's move on to the running backs. No Ahmad Hardy this week. I could have used him against UMass. He would have put up 300 rushing yards. But no Ahmad Hardy. He's going to take a little vacation away from the show. You're going to roll Nate Frazier of Georgia against that Alabama defensive front. I'm going to take Mike Washington Jr. of Arkansas. So talk about Nate Frazier and how he can really get some open running room against that Alabama defensive front that's starting to really play to their potential over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that Georgia likes to run the football. That's their identity. Gunnar Stockton he's playing really well, but they need Nate Frazier to be that bruising running back that they're so accustomed to having, especially if he's going to rock that number 3. I mean, think about the guys that did that.
Come on, Todd Gurley.
Yeah. So, I think he's got to be the next guy up, and he certainly looks to be the, capable of doing so. But before we get to your pick, look, I appreciate the humility for not putting Ahmad Hardy on me against UMass. And I think it's important to remind everybody that when we started doing this segment, a lot of it was about identifying key matchups on the weekend, not just picking on the little guys. So I think we accomplished that here with two of our better games of the weekend with Georgia and Alabama. And then your guy, Washington, he's taking on Notre Dame, and, maybe he's in line for something special.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I think it's a bounce back for him. I know that he is definitely feeling it after that costly fumble. That I'm not going to say costs his team the game. I definitely think Arkansas definitely had some missed opportunities in that game even before that fumble. But it's just been back-to-back weeks where Arkansas has lost on the fumble. So Mike Washington Jr., he really had an impressive game against Memphis, and his whole stat line for the first couple of weeks of the season has really been consistent. And against the Notre Dame defense, that isn't great. I mean, this is the same defense that just let up 30 points against Purdue's offense. I mean, Purdue definitely has some talent, but are they as explosive as Arkansas's offense? Probably not. So I think that Mike Washington Jr. is definitely going to have a really solid game against Notre Dame. And this is a big spot for both teams, especially Arkansas. You do not want to lose 3 straight games in a row before the month of October. So Frazier and Washington Jr. are our 2 running backs. Now let's go on to our wide receivers, and these are 2 of the most talented wide receivers in the SEC so far. Ryan Williams with Alabama and Mario Craver of Texas A&M. Craver has been the guy for the Aggies there. So if Marcel Reed throws it to Mario Craver, we will both get yardage. But Ryan Williams, he's going up against Georgia. We know what happened last time that he faced off against the Dogs. So can Williams do it again?
I think he can. I mean, maybe lightning will strike twice and he'll make another big play. The reason why I went with them is the Tennessee Georgia game. I mean, it was a shootout, and Chris Brazzell really stretched the field against Georgia. So I think Ryan Williams has every opportunity to do so. Ty Simpson, I mean, it's only a matter of time before we get him on the show here. He's doing a good job despite that opening season loss against Florida State. I mean, this Alabama offense looks good. So no hesitation here about playing one of the better receivers.
Yeah, I almost looked at Ryan Williams this week, but I just wanted to get Mario Craver on this show. I feels like he's definitely been due for a roster spot. And, we saw last year's game, Texas A&M and Auburn. It was a double overtime shootout, both 40s going into the 40s. Do I see that happen again? More than likely not, though Texas A&M's defense has struggled. And Auburn's coming off a real nice showing against Oklahoma, even in a loss. But Mario Craver, like I mentioned, has been the guy that Marcel Reed has been targeting. I mean, had a monster game against Notre Dame in that big win. So Mario Craver would be my receiver. Williams would be yours. And now we'll go to the defenses. And to be honest with you, these were the two defenses that I feel like both of us were going to take either or. So you're going to roll with the Vanderbilt Commodores defense against a Utah State team that's coming in here 3-1, still in Mountain West Conference competition. And then Missouri, they're going up against UMass, who is 0-3. So if you remember last year, Missouri went to UMass. Now UMass is completing this little home and home that Mizzou and UMass has. So talk about Vandy's defense, how they performed last week against Georgia State. I mean, they really performed well with the starters in. When the backups came in, they had a couple of late garbage touchdowns. How can they really continue this, not really dominant performance, but these good performances over the last couple of weeks of this Utah team that's coming in here very talented?
Yeah, I mean, this is all about momentum for me. Usually I would shy away from Vanderbilt in a situation like this. They're one of the teams that's more susceptible to an upset against a 3-1 Mountain West team, but not this year. Vanderbilt's different. They've proven that. So with this survivor defense format, I felt good about taking them right here.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it was either between Missouri and Vanderbilt for me. I just went with Missouri at home against a UMass team that isn't great. 0-3 for a reason. And Missouri's defense, they really, outside of Lenore Sellers having 300 passing yards, I mean, South Carolina had -7 rushing yards in that game. So I think if Missouri can just hold UMass in that rushing department, I just don't really trust UMass getting the yardage through the airs. So I wouldn't be surprised if Vandy and Missouri are neck and neck of how many yards they are giving up this week. And that is our rosters in week number 5. We will keep track of that over the weekend, and we'll be back here on next week's show to see who took the victory in week number 5 and draft our teams heading into week number 6. So that is SEC Fantasy. Now we will get into our game recaps. As always, we will recap the top 4 games of the weekend. And starting with the first shock of the weekend, Arkansas and Memphis. I feel like we were pretty consistent picks here of going with Arkansas. We said that this one was going to be a game that Arkansas was going to be down to the fourth quarter. But in the first half, I mean, it looks like Arkansas was just going to blow out Memphis in this one. They were up 20-10. Taylor Green had a couple of passing touchdowns. Mike Washington had a couple of key runs to get them to that lead. But Memphis's offense, especially that running game, was able to get going. And then, like I mentioned, Arkansas gave up that late touchdown to Memphis. So Memphis ended up going 32-31. And then Arkansas was driving. Looks like they were going to, score either the game-winning touchdown or kick the game-winning field goal. And then Mike Washington Jr. Got punched out with a fumble. And Memphis was able to get a couple of key first downs. And Memphis is a quiet 4-0. Everyone's talking about Tulane. Everyone's talking about South Florida being the representative from the American. But Memphis at 4-0, I know they still have some tough games in the conference coming up. But could you see this Memphis team be the representative of the American? And also talk about how, over the last couple of weeks, Arkansas has had some bad luck.
Yeah, bad luck is an understatement. I couldn't believe this game. I mean, I was listening to it in the car on the radio, and they were up by like 13 at one point. And then I saw that, Memphis completely flipped it, but Arkansas had the ball in plus territory. And it looks like they're gonna, get away with the 34-32 win. And lo and behold, just really sloppy with the football. There was no need to try to extend the play. But hey, kudos to Memphis. Like you said, I think that the American will probably get a bid in the playoff this year, whether it be Memphis or Tulane, maybe South Florida. So that's shaping up to be a really good conference. Can't forget about Tulsa. They beat Oklahoma State on Friday.
And Navy's still undefeated.
And Navy, yeah. So the American's looking really good. Memphis is definitely in the thick of it. And this is an impressive win because I know Arkansas is down in the dumps right now. They lost back-to-back weeks on heartbreaking plays. But, I think this is a team that could still get to bowl eligibility. And if you're Memphis, looking to work your way into the playoff hierarchy, that would be big to have a win against a bowl-eligible SEC team. So this could be a big win looking back on it.
Yeah, Arkansas, they got a big one coming up against Notre Dame. It feels like a must-win to really just save their season at this point because losing 3 straight before you really get into the heart of SEC play is not what you want to be looking for. But Memphis, definitely a team that we're going to keep our eye on as a G5 representative. And I think that more than likely that G5 representative is going to be coming out of that American Conference, which is looking very stacked this season. Now let's move on to the next one. This was our SEC Talk Game of the Week. This was the only ranked matchup in the conference between number 22 Auburn and number 11 Oklahoma. And I think that we pretty much got what we expected coming into this game, a defensive battle. Oklahoma ended up winning this one 24-17. This is back-to-back seasons now that the Sooners took down Auburn. And it was all about Oklahoma's defense in this one. I mean, Jackson Arnold, he definitely had a lot of time to throw the ball. But most times, he just held on it for way too long. And that resulted in Oklahoma breaking a school record of 10 sacks on the game. So this Oklahoma defense from last year to this year, I mean, Brent Venables has done a terrific job with that defensive front. I feel like Dabo was wishing that he had Brent Venables at this point, the way his defense is looking. But Auburn's offense, they had that early touchdown by Cam Coleman. And then, outside of that, the Auburn offense really got bogged down. You didn't really see too many big plays outside of them. They got that little jet sweep to take the lead. And then Oklahoma and John Mateer was able to score a rushing touchdown to get this one 24-17. There was a lot of, referee involvement with this game. You had Auburn with a potential scoop and score that got brought back because, they overturned it to an incomplete pass. And then they had a lot of controversy. You saw the SEC release a statement about it. So, that's just typical SEC refs for you. You're going to have some controversy in these type of games. But I was really impressed with Auburn's side. I know Jackson Arnold didn't look that great, but he didn't really, force any turnovers in this game. But Oklahoma, man, paired with John Mateer in this defense, they are definitely going to be tough, out the rest of the way.
Yeah. I mean, this team has what you want, a superstar quarterback and a really stingy defense. And, I think this game went about like I thought. Auburn hung in there. Jackson Arnold made a few good plays in his homecoming, but when it mattered, man, Oklahoma sent the house on him, and they kind of knew his weaknesses. They knew that he would want to scramble on 3rd and long and, let him do it because you're not going to get 16 yards rushing on a scramble against this Oklahoma defense. So I think that they were able to pick him apart there at the end just because they knew kind of his tendencies. But lots to play for if you're Auburn. Again, I think this team's still kind of ahead of schedule, and Oklahoma is really ahead of schedule because, I mean, I didn't have them being undefeated at this point. That's for sure. Beating Michigan and Auburn now. So that Red River rivalry
that's a hard game to say.
Yeah, but man, that could be an undefeated matchup going into that.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that in a couple of weeks. And Oklahoma will now go on the bye. And like you mentioned, impressive resume builder. Michigan did get a big victory on the road against Nebraska. So as long as Michigan continues to win and Auburn continues to win as well, Auburn will have a tough road trip once again on the road in College Station against Texas A&M. So Auburn, the road is not easy for them moving forward because coming off the bye, too, I believe they have to face off against the Georgia team. That who knows where they'll be at that point. Georgia has a big game this week, but big victory for Oklahoma at home. Now let's move on to another conference battle between South Carolina and number 23 Missouri. In this game, it feels like it always comes down to the wire. This was like a back and forth game. It was like a lot of field goals early for Missouri. South Carolina, Lenore Sellers had two, monster passing touchdowns to really just keep this game close. But in the end, it was just Missouri's dominant rush that really gave them the victory in this one. Because like I mentioned, Missouri had over 250 yards rushing. South Carolina only held to -7. And whenever you can't even get to even one rushing yard, you're going to lose most of these games as Missouri comes away with a 29-20 victory. And Missouri, I know you and I were very high on once again heading into the season, especially with the addition of Ahmad Hardy in this offense and the way that Bo Pribula has been playing over the last couple of weeks. I mean, South Carolina didn't look bad. It's just Missouri's defense really was stout against the rush, and South Carolina's defense wasn't able to stop the run at all. And if you can't stop Ahmad Hardy, then you're going to have a very long day. So South Carolina now, a team that everybody and their mother was high on heading into this season. They are now with 2 losses, and it's not even in October. So I'm not saying the hot seat is getting there for Shane Beamer, but, with a lot of coaches, potentially being fired in the SEC, Florida is more than likely going to open. Arkansas might even open. Kentucky, we don't know what that situation is going to be like. But what are your overall takeaways on this win for Missouri? And are you feeling a little bit of the hot seat starting to warm here for Beamer?
I don't know that South Carolina is in a position where they could force Beamer out, but with that Virginia Tech opening off, with the Virginia Tech opening coming about and a potential offer heading to Shane Beamer, there's a potential out in that regard. If South Carolina continues to lose, they could put a little pressure on him to maybe entertain that, because that's about the only way they're getting out of that big contract. They just extended him. But I think this one's a reasonable loss. It is a tough road trip to Missouri. Missouri's playing really well. Obviously, Lenoris wasn't his typical mobile self. I mean, part of them having negative rushing yards was that Lenoris Sellers had -28 because of all the sacks he was taking, and he just couldn't extend plays with his legs like he typically does. So that should get better as the weeks go on and he heals up and the offensive line gets healthier too. But a little bit of cause for concern for South Carolina. I think they'll take care of business this weekend. We'll get into that game, but it's hard to trust them against the rest of that schedule. I mean, they got Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama, all left to play. So it's hard to see them hanging with those guys right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So South Carolina, like you mentioned, looking to bounce back this coming week against Kentucky. And then Missouri, they got a cupcake against UMass, so that should be an expected win for them. We'll move on to the last game, but don't tell me why are you talking about this game. Well, there's not many games else to talk about outside of this one. Florida at number 4, Miami. I mean, the score itself should have been way bigger than what it was, 26-7. DJ Lagway, I don't know what the heck happened to him. I don't know if it's Billy Napier just can't develop his quarterbacks at all, which, I mean, I would definitely not put that aside him to do. But Florida's defense, I mean, they're like a championship-level defense. This offense is definitely putrid. I mean, they only had 1 first down in the first half, just 1. I mean, Carson Beck didn't even play that well either. I mean, like Miami didn't really have to do too much to beat this Florida team. It just felt like a slow, painful loss for the Florida Gators once again. So, I mean, you didn't have like the 5 interceptions of DJ Lagway, but he only had like 60 yards passing in this game. I mean, Miami's defense, we could definitely talk about them. I mean, they were much improved from last year. I mean, last year, they're getting up a ton of yardage, a ton of points, and they had this talented offense led by Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo. This year, it's more led by the defense. The wide receivers that stepped up with CJ Daniels, and the rushing attack with Fletcher as well. But Miami, they definitely, with a big win once again, 26-7. They will move on to the bye week before that big test on the road against Florida State. But Florida now 1-3, and it feels like at any moment Billy Napier is going to get canned. Should have been canned a long time ago. But what are your takeaways on this game and just the offense of how bad Florida is?
Yeah, not a lot of positives for Florida.
No.
I mean, like you said, the defense does look good. That's probably one of the few times we'll see Miami get held to under 30 points on the season. But until that offense gets it going, it's all for nothing. This is what, 3 straight weeks under 20 for Florida, under
Yep.
15.
I mean, they only scored like 15 against South Florida, 10 against LSU, and then now 7 against Miami.
Yeah, and honestly, the only team they put points up on was an FCS school. So
Long Island.
yeah, not looking good for Florida.
No.
Another team that has a tough schedule ahead of them.
Yeah, do you see a lot like a win the rest of the way? Like, what are their winnable games? Like Mississippi State at home? Outside of that, I don't really see much.
Yeah, they do play Mississippi State. Do they play Arkansas or no?
I don't know. I get too lost in these SEC schedules, but I know coming off of the bye, they have to host Texas.
Yeah. No, I think it's only going to get uglier. The good news is I think they'll clearly still be the top job on the market. Unless something crazy happens, like Dabo gets canned from Clemson. I think that Virginia Tech and Wisconsin and some of these other programs, they're just not as lucrative of jobs as the Florida job. So they'll get their guy, and there's a lot of good mid-major coaches out there to pick from if they go that route again. If they want to get somebody established, they're going to have to pay up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the offseason, the coaching carousel is definitely going to be wild, and I'm sure that we're going to get a lot of coach firings as we head into the month of October, because who knows how long Billy Napier is going to last heading into the bye week. I'm surprised he's even have a job at this point after getting blown out once again, but we will see when that press conference comes along. Now we get into our week 4 picking results, and we can all blame Arkansas for giving us one loss, because if it wasn't for Arkansas, we would all be undefeated at 10-0. But nonetheless, I mean, we all picked. I mean, it was pretty easy games last week. And, had Oklahoma and Auburn, and then outside of that, you had South Carolina, Missouri. But 9-1, the rest of the slate here, week number 4. We'll see if one of us can get undefeated, though. Week number 5 is definitely going to be a lot of testy games here. So we'll now move into week number 5 games to pick them. But before we get into that, we are going to be bringing in our guest picker. We're going to be doing this, every other week. We're going to keep track of all of our guest pickers and how they did. So I'm going to go ahead and back away outside of this. Sorry, I'm dealing with another little bit of lag here. Oh, come on. All right, we're going to bring in Elise. Welcome into SEC Talk. Talk a little bit about yourself. Welcome you to the viewers here on SEC Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, super excited to be here and to hopefully be undefeated with my picks, but I guess we'll see.
All right.
Definitely feel like I could start off strong, but, don't want to be eating my words next week. So.
All right. So with that, we'll get into our week 5 games and pick them. We're starting off hot here with a real enticing matchup here between number 22 Notre Dame and Arkansas. Notre Dame got their first victory on the season on I keep trying to say Sunday night. I think that Notre Dame plays on Sundays, but they played on Saturday night.
Baby.
Yeah, they played on Saturday night against Purdue. I mean, they looked good on offense. Defense still concerning. Arkansas back-to-back defeating losses. So, Elise, since you're a guest picker, I'm going to let you kick it away. Who you got between the Fighting Irish and the Hogs?
I've got Notre Dame for sure. I've always loved Notre Dame. I went to a football game there in high school, so I definitely feel a little biased. I've always had a soft spot for them, but I do think that they have had a great season so far and that they'll come up on top.
All right, so rolling with the Fighting Irish. Wade, are you going to pull a not so fast, or are you going to roll with the Irish here?
Not so fast. Okay. I'm going with Arkansas. Woo, pig, suey. Look, Notre Dame, they struggled against Texas A&M. They lost to Miami in the opener. They let up 30 to Purdue. I mean, I just don't think this defense is what they were a season ago. Arkansas has been uncharacteristically unlucky the first or I guess the last 2 weeks against Memphis and against Ole Miss. So I just
So
think
with them being unlucky the last 2 to 3 weeks, you think they're going to be able to beat Notre Dame?
yeah, the ball's going to bounce their way. It's going to go off the upright or
Okay.
something wonky's going to happen. It's an 11 a.m. game in the South. I mean, it's just going to be a weird upset. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Notre Dame is going to be a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, they already went to Miami, which is, I mean, that's just defines humidity right there. But I would agree with you if it was at night, but at 11 a.m., I think there's going to be a lot of points in this one. I mean, the winner is probably going to have to get to 40, but I'm going to do it not so fast on you too. So you're a sandwich in between our Notre Dame picks here. I'm going to go Notre Dame. This is still a very talented team. And I just can't wrap around my head of how Arkansas is going to be able to stop Jeremiah Love from this rushing attack. And Notre Dame has definitely found themselves on offense. I think they're going to get a key takeaway at the end of this game here to pull away, because Arkansas, if you can't beat Memphis, you sure ain't going to beat Notre Dame. And Chet's also going to go Notre Dame. So you're the lone, usually the lone wolf. We'll say the lone hog this time. So we will see how that works out in the standings. So we will move on to another non-conference battle, Utah State at number 18, Vandy. You have Utah State or Vandy, and talk about, do you like Diego Pavia? Because I know a lot of people, including Chet, doesn't really like his attitude.
Are you a Diego fan?
I think I picked Vanderbilt. So yeah,
you are.
Is Diego?
You are a Diego fan.
Yeah, Diego.
Bear with me. I feel like I know a good bit about the teams, but individual people, I'm still learning. So.
All right. So you're rolling with the Doors. Wade, are you rolling with continuing your SEC love here? Because you definitely did it in week number 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep going with Vanderbilt here. They're on my nice list, so I think they get it done, no problem here. But Diego, he's a little cocky, but he's backing it up right now.
Yeah, man, they ran that thing up on Saturday. I mean, they just kept. I mean, like I talked about last week. I mean, Georgia State beat them, in their home stadium, and Vanderbilt's like, I don't care if we put up 70 or more. We're just going to keep it rolling. And they're going to keep it rolling, too, at home. I mean, did you see the crowd at Vanderbilt? I mean, that was like the most Vandy fans that I've ever seen. That's not like a shade on them, but it's definitely nice to see Vanderbilt fans really get involved in this football program. I think it's heading in the right direction with Clark Lee. So give me the win there and a clean sweep on the Commodores there. So we will now move on to a game that we are definitely all excited about here. And this is our SEC Talk game of the week. It is number 4 LSU at number 13 Ole Miss, the annual Magnolia Bowl. And let me tell you, this last couple of meetings between the two teams, it's either high scoring or it comes down to the wire in overtime. So Elise, I know that we all went to LSU. So you riding with the Tigers, or are you going to roll with the Rebs?
Riding with the Tigers.
Right.
Got to go with our Tigers. I do think that LSU has a really good chance to beat Ole Miss. I think that we've improved dramatically our defense since the start of the season. I know that's been an issue the last couple of seasons. And even our offense has improved. I think Garrett Nussmeier has a good hold on everybody on the team thus far. And so I feel good about going into next week.
Yeah, definitely agree about the defensive improvement. All right, Wade, I think you've been picking Ole Miss for the last 5 years of this. Are you continuing that trend?
Hey, it's kind of worked, though.
Sometimes.
Yeah, no, this has really been an impressive series. And this is one that I've enjoyed, just learning this rivalry. It's one that, hey, when you get to LSU, you think that our main rival is Alabama, but I really think it is Ole Miss just because of the history between the two programs and the proximity. And I had the pleasure of going up there 2 years ago and seeing it from that perspective. Unfortunately, yeah, I am going to pick against the Tigers in this one. Call me a hater, but
I am calling you a hater. Boo.
We can't have 4 Tiger heads up there. If you've watched the show in the past, it's not good when that happens. Well, I don't know. Maybe you're going Ole Miss too, but it's not good when we all pick LSU. It never works in our favor. So if I got to take a loss for a team win here, I'll do it.
All right. Well, I guess I'll give you the pass on that. But yeah, I think that this is definitely going to be an exciting matchup at 2:30. Lane Kiffin still bitching and moaning that this should be a Saturday night game for him. But yeah, this LSU defense versus a very talented Ole Miss offense, and the defense by Ole Miss, play their best game for sure. But I still have concerns with this Ole Miss offense. I just go back to the Arkansas game. Taylon Green, I know that he's more of a dual threat quarterback. You could say Southeastern, whatever, but I really liked this LSU offense and how they looked. The running game was still kind of but I think that the receivers, nonetheless, will take over in this game. I think that this is once again going to be a back and forth game, and give me LSU to continue their undefeated season into the month of October here, and give me Ole Miss losing their first game of the season. Chet, you know him; he's going to go with LSU. So, like you mentioned, you are saving us from having all 4 LSU picks. So maybe you're just taking one for the team.
It's a bunt.
Yeah, you're just doing a sacrifice bunt there. So we will move on to our next game of the week. Auburn at number 9, Texas A&M, a crazy game that we had last year for both these teams. Like I mentioned, going into overtime, both teams going over 40. So Elise, lead us off here. Are you going to go with Auburn to bounce back or the Aggies to continue their undefeated season as well?
I'm going to go with the Aggies. I think they're going to stay undefeated. I just don't think Auburn's really got it this year, and they haven't shown much promise, especially to beat A&M, a top 10 team. So going with the Aggies.
All right. So a lot of early disagreement between you two. Wade, are you going with Auburn or going with A&M?
Oh, I'll agree with her. We've been chirping all day because we're playing each other in fantasy football as well.
No.
So,
it's been a house divided all day today.
If I win, it's because CeeDee Lamb got hurt and he's on her team.
100%.
So. But I will be unified here, and I will take Texas A&M. I picked Marcel Reed in SEC Fantasy for a reason. I mean, I think that he's really become one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And I just don't think that Jackson Arnold's that guy to go on the road and win a night game here. So give me A&M.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with Texas A&M. I just think if it gets to a shootout, I just don't think that this Auburn offense has the weapons that A&M does to keep up with them. So I think that Texas A&M will win this one pretty convincingly. I think by at least 2 touchdowns. I think they continue to make a statement. They're coming off of a bye week. Auburn, a very physical game on the road. So I think A&M just wins this one. I'll say 38-17 type of game like that. I think it's a very dominant performance by the Aggies at home and a clean sweep. Of course, Chet's just going to go with Texas at this point. So we're going to go all Aggies on this one. So we'll see if we have any more disagreements for the rest of the way. Now let's move on to the next game. Number 15, Tennessee at Mississippi State. Mississippi State undefeated. Tennessee with a 1 loss to Georgia. So, Elise, battle of the dogs. You got Smokey, you got Bully. So who you rocking with?
I'm rocking with Tennessee. I think they're going to have a great game this week. I think it should be a decently scoring game, especially with Mississippi State being undefeated. But still have Tennessee.
All right, Wade, you've been, kind of at this preseason, we were both kind of have our question marks, but I think those question marks about Tennessee are wiped. So you have them with a big road win against the Dogs here.
This will be a test for Joey Aguilar. He's been really good so far, but he hasn't faced an SEC crowd on the road. So I think that does play to Mississippi State's advantage, but I think that this Tennessee team will settle in, and I think they win this one close. I think they score a touchdown late. I think it's one that Mississippi State kind of hangs around, but lets up a big touchdown late.
Yeah, I think that this is a very underrated matchup outside of the conference too. I feel like if you're a Big Ten fan or an ACC fan, you're probably not even going to be watching this one. But it's sandwich in the afternoon game set at 3:15, so you'll have those big games at 2:30, and then you'll have the night games. But Tennessee's offense, I mean, they are definitely looking really sharp with Joey Aguilar. And then Brazel, like you mentioned, the star receiver for them. Mississippi State has a lot of weapons that they brought in for the transfer portal. The defense, to me, is what's the most improving part of it. And you know what? Give me the Dogs at home. The bells are going to be ringing. They got a big victory against Arizona State. They're going to continue this. Mississippi State has been my team that I've been rocked with. That I think it's going to surprise a lot of people this year. So give me Mississippi State, and I will take this for sure, as Chet's also rocking with Tennessee there. So that is my one upset. We'll see if I pull any more upsets the rest of the show. And now another big game between number 17, Alabama, and number 5, Georgia. Georgia has definitely had an Alabama problem, even with Nick Saban or Kalen DeBoer there. So do you have Georgia finally getting the victory against Alabama at least here?
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah, and it's potentially a blackout. What I've been hearing.
Oh,
Oh, you think it's a black? You think it'll be a blackout?
I mean, that's what their Barstool account said. So I don't know if it's true or not. But if it is, we might be concerned because if you remember 2008, Alabama was up like 31-0 at the half.
Wow. Yeah, no, I definitely think Georgia's got it. I think that Alabama is not the same team that they were under Saban. I think that they've kind of dropped off a little bit. I think they're still a powerful team, but definitely not the number one team that I think everybody's afraid to play. So I think Georgia definitely is going to take this one.
Yep. So Wade, are you going to roll with the Tide or go with Georgia?
I'm going to go with Georgia, just being the home team. I'm intrigued by this blackout talk. I think that this atmosphere is going to be electric for sure. I mean, look at the games we're picking, y'all. You're going to roll right from LSU and Ole Miss into this game. And if LSU's up by 40 against Ole Miss, like y'all think it will be, you can tune into that Tennessee-Mississippi State game in the interim. I mean, we're in for a treat on football here. But that being said, I'm going to go with Georgia.
Yeah, I feel sorry for those who have to go to a wedding this weekend because this is one of the best college football weekends this week. And not gonna lie, my butt's gonna be parked on the couch all day watching all these games. But yeah, like I mentioned, last year, everybody was picking Georgia, and then Alabama was up 28-0 on them in the first half, and then Georgia was able to respond. But I just feel like Georgia is just like due for a win against Alabama. Alabama the last couple of weeks, they look great. I mean, they played Louisiana Monroe, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's got destroyed by a Maryland team. That's going to be, we'll see how good they are. So I think that it's going to be a close game. Alabama's definitely going to be motivated in this one. I feel like everyone's going to be down them. But still, Georgia at night between the hedges. Give me the dogs. Oh, boy. This is a mistake.
Congrats, Alabama.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes as we're all picking Georgia. So we will continue on with our next matchup, UMass at number 20, Missouri. Now, I don't know if you're going to go crazy on us, Elise, here and pick UMass, but you're going to go with Mizzou.
I'm not going to lie. Part of me almost went UMass. I almost had this be maybe a potential, upset, but I went with Missouri. I think Missouri is going to take it.
All right, Wade. I think you can spend a second on here and just say Ahmad Hardy and move on.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he's out by halftime in this one. Yeah. This was intriguing last year when Missouri had to go to UMass, but not this year.
Yeah, Mizzou by 50, let's be honest with you. This will be over by halftime. Jed, all going. We're all going. Yeah, this is just get your bunny UMass and go back to your dog water stadium that you play in. All right, let's move on to the next one, our nightcap on SEC Network, Kentucky at South Carolina. It feels like this is a wacky game. I don't, Wade, you're more in tune with this rivalry. How close has this rivalry been over the last couple of weeks? Not weeks, years. Excuse me.
It has been close. I mean, even when South Carolina was, a top 25 team year in, year out, Kentucky was the team that would spoil it for them. And then vice versa, Kentucky kind of went on a surge in the early 2020s, 2018 to 2022 range, and South Carolina wasn't that good, and they'd spoil it for Kentucky. So I don't know that either team has much to spoil at the moment, but South Carolina desperately needs a win. They've got a very, very tough schedule coming up, so they have to take care of business in this one. Lenore Sellers has got to get his swagger back, and I think he does. So I'm going with South Carolina. I know I'm jumping the gun here on my wife. But
yeah, what gives?
Yeah, well, where are you going with South Carolina? Are you going to spite him and pick Kentucky at least?
I don't think my in-laws will appreciate this, but I got to go with Kentucky. I hate to choose against the fam, but the way South Carolina's been playing thus far and just kind of the slow start that they've had, I don't see it happening for them, especially like Wade said with their tough schedule coming up. I think this might be a tough season for them. So going with Kentucky.
Yeah, it's definitely been a tough start to the season for both teams. I mean, Kentucky's their one loss, so it was to a very good Ole Miss team. South Carolina definitely puzzling the start that they have had. I mean, even in the wins, against a Virginia Tech team that just got their first win of the season against Wofford. You never know with both of these teams. What I do know is Kentucky can't stop a soul, so I'm going to go with South Carolina on this one. I think that is going to be a pretty convincing win. I know that, Wade, you brought up, oh, this is a close rivalry and all, but I just don't think that Kentucky has the roster to compete in this battle against South Carolina, especially at home. I mean, if they lose this one, you better just roll Beamer out of there and just send his butt all the way to Blacksburg, Virginia Tech at that point. Jets also going to go with South Carolina. So, all right. So
all right,
this is you're going to be at the top of the leaderboard. Looks like.
All right, this is my game. Then I'll have to really be tuned into this one next weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a lot of tough games to pick. That is it for our Week 5 games and pick them. So at least we appreciate you for coming into this. I know you started up a podcast yourself. So where can our viewers find you and all of your wonderful co-hosts?
Thank you. So I recently started a podcast called Every Age, Every Stage with two of my coworkers, kind of just talking about different stages of life. We're all in different decades, dealing with different things. And so you can find us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. We're just kind of trying to get our start. And, honestly, y'all's sports podcast inspired me, seeing y'all do this every week. And so I wanted to give it a shot. So would love to have y'all on my podcast as well at some point.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. I mean, I've been tuning in every time that an episode pops up. I have my notifications on. Y'all have definitely done a wonderful job. Keep it up. I'm the lowest subscriber. I know you've been loyal to us. So we appreciate you coming into this. We will keep track of your games. And if you do well enough, you'll get a ticket back here on SEC.
I'll get asked back. Okay, good.
Yeah, we'll have some more.
The whole crew too at some point.
We'll have some other guest pickers just to keep track of the rest of the season, and maybe we'll have a little prize at the end of the season for whoever does well. Right. So, at least you enjoy the rest of your night, and thanks for coming on here.
Thank y'all.
All right. So with that, Wade, man, we could definitely have a lot of good games in store, and I just can't wait for the leaderboard, how that's going to shape out. So we're going to go back to the show here with our last part of the show with our hot topics. So we actually have a lot of hot topics. I know that you're definitely excited for the last bullet point, so that's why I wanted to save it for the end, because I know yourself, you had that Excel spreadsheet that you brought to us at the start of the season, so we'll get to that there at the end. But first off, it's which SEC coach, out of Sam Pittman, Billy Napier, and maybe you can bring in Mark Stoops at this point, depending if Kentucky just bottoms out over the last couple of weeks here. So which SEC coach out of all those will get fired first?
If Arkansas loses this weekend bad, the Hogs might have to fire Pittman. But I still think the leader in the clubhouse is Billy Napier. I mean, one more loss might do it for him.
Shoot, I thought this loss would have done it for him. Even more losses. I think, I agree with you. Billy Napier, I mean, who knows at this point? Like, fire him yesterday at this point. But if he loses to Texas, I think that's all she wrote for Billy Napier. I think that, Billy Napier, I just hate the way that they handled the Dan Mullen situation. He was 34-15. It's not like he was a bad coach. And then you see Billy Napier, he's not even close to being 500. But I agree with you. But like you mentioned, if Sam Pittman and the Hogs lose by 20 or more, I could definitely see Arkansas pull the trigger on him. Let's go on to the next question. Who should be the quarterback one for Ole Miss moving forward? Should it be Simmons or should it be Trinidad?
I think this is kind of one of the rare situations where you could play two quarterbacks. I know that's not conventional, but one of the last places we saw it work was actually in Oxford. They had John Reese Plumlee and I think Teamu at one point, both playing. So I think that's something they could consider doing. I think that when Simmons is healthy, he really does bring that dual threat capability. You could use him in the red zone, but I mean, I'm also a fan of going with the hot hand. So if Trinidad's the guy that can beat LSU, then you got to do that and just run with it. So yeah, I know that's a non-committal answer, but I guess I would keep rolling with the hot hand until it's no longer hot.
I agree with you too. I'll go with Trinidad Chambliss, especially against an LSU defense. In the past, we've seen LSU struggle against running quarterbacks, especially last year against Marcel Reed and then Jalen Milroe, of course, what he did every time that he faced off against that Tigers defense. Obviously, LSU's defense is much improved, so we will see. But I think that Lane Kiffin, Trinidad Chambliss just fits the offense more. Austin Simmons, decision-making just wasn't there the first couple of weeks. So like you mentioned, roll with a hot hand the rest of the way. Now let's move on to which SEC player impressed you in week number 4. I feel like you're just going to go with one of your SEC fantasy players.
Yeah, I mean, I could go with Ahmad Hardy. I feel like that would be kind of the obvious answer. I'm going to go with a little homer pick here. I'm going to go Juwan Johnson. I think that maybe he's the answer LSU needs at running back. His vision was just really good, and kudos to him. I mean, he bounced around to like 4 or 5 different positions. Pretty much wherever LSU was thin, they moved him there to be like the 3rd string guy, and that's kind of what happened at running back. We were a little thin there going into the fall camp, and lo and behold, I think he's definitely earned himself at least kind of a 1A, 1B type role with Caden Durham. So I'm excited to see how his role continues in SEC play.
Well, my player is just the player we just talked about. That's Trinidad Chambliss. Against a Tulane defense, I thought that was going to be more stout against them. Ole Miss just blew the doors off a very talented Tulane team that, beat Northwestern and beat Duke. You could say whatever about their resume at this point. But, I mean, he had over 300 yards passing, 112 yards on the ground. I don't care who you play. You can play an FCS team. You can play a G5, Power 4. Give me that, and you're going to win every single game. So Trinidad Chambliss, I know that he's been limited, but he could very well, be a contender. Not for Offensive Player of the Year for overall SEC, but maybe we'll have to get him here on SEC Fantasy over the next couple of weeks. But like I mentioned, whenever we went to the hot topics, the SEC on Tuesday will be announcing the 4 years of football opponents. So all of our 16 league members will get their, there are 3 opponents that are going to be facing every year. And then we'll also get, up to those 4 years of who everyone's going to be playing. If you missed the news, I feel like this dropped a couple of weeks back. The SEC is going to be going to the 9-game conference schedule moving forward in 2026. So Wade, what are you looking forward to on Tuesday's reveal? I know you've been a big proponent of this. So what are you looking most forward to on Tuesday night reveal on SEC Network?
I think it's going to be interesting to see which new age rivalries the SEC wants to protect. I think we know some of the ones we're going to see, Auburn and Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, probably Florida, Georgia, some of these just deep-rooted SEC rivalries, and I think that's great. But I'm curious to see kind of what that next level of rivalry is. Will the SEC care about LSU and Arkansas, or do they want to see LSU in Florida or LSU in Texas A&M? Do we want to see Tennessee and Kentucky play every year? Is that important? I don't know, just some of these border rivalries, I guess, but also just like competitive rivalries. So I'm curious how they approach that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think on next week's show, we'll go through, not all of them because that's going to take forever. We'll just go through all the notable. Yeah, we'll just go through what are the 3 opponents for maybe some of our teams. So we will look into that in next week's show. But we are definitely excited for a sensational week 5, both in the conference and outside the conference. So we appreciate everybody for tuning into tonight's show. Just depending on, what Sunday night we get, we'll either roll on Sunday night or Monday night. We'll just have to look at the schedule moving forward. But we appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight, and we will catch y'all next time right here on SEC Talk.